I was declared missing in action. Brittany told everyone I died overseas, held a fake funeral, collected the sympathy and my military life insurance. But I wasn't dead, not even close. And the moment I stepped into our bedroom and saw Jason tied to the bed, gagged, with bruises down his chest, while Brittany stood over him in lingerie holding a candle like it was some damn ritual, I realized something. They thought I'd never come back. She turned her head like she'd seen a ghost. Her lips dropped open. Jason tried to scream through the tape. Brittany just whispered, OSH*T. And that's how it all began. A few months earlier, while I was deployed overseas, she'd started sleeping with him. At first, it was just late-night messages. Then her photos started getting more revealing. Then came the lies, the stories about girls' nights and weekend yoga retreats. Turns out Jason wasn't just some fling. He was her partner in a plan to remove me from the picture permanently. But something changed. One night, Jason got nervous. Said he couldn't go through with it. Wanted to tell the cops everything. That night, he disappeared. Brittany told the police someone broke into the house. She played the victim. But I knew better. Because I'd been watching the whole time. Hiding. Waiting. Planning. This story isn't about a man who lost everything. It's about what happens when the one you betray doesn't die and comes home quietly. Brittany thought she was a widow. She cried on live streams, made TikToks in black dresses, posted old wedding pictures with captions like, "Come back to me, my hero." The views poured in. The sympathy. The money. Even my old buddies from the Marines sent donations. She pocketed everything. But I wasn't dead. The convoy I was in got hit. Yes, but I made it out. Badly injured. No ID. No comms. For 2 weeks, I was just a body in a hospital bed in a military field unit. By the time I was stable and back in a position to contact anyone, I'd already heard the news. Travis Miller, Kia. And just like that, I had the rarest thing a man could ever get after betrayal, the gift of being forgotten. I didn't rush home. I didn't call. I watched. I used a buddy who worked in Intel to pull phone records, socials, even private surveillance near my house. I wanted to be sure. Not just about Brittany cheating. I already had a gut feeling about that, but about something bigger. What I found was worse than I imagined. Just 10 days after the military confirmed my death, Brittany made her first cash withdrawal from my pension. 1 week later, Jason, the chiseled wannabe alpha who used to deliver gym supplements, moved into our house. He didn't even park on the street. He used my driveway. She didn't wear black for long either. The lingerie came out. The club nights started again. She even dyed her hair platinum blonde and started calling herself B on Instagram. My ghost status was her glow up. I set up camp 5 miles from the house. Cheap motel. Disguised my look, scruffy beard, hoodie, fake limp. I'd go out at night, watch from a distance. My best friend, Mason, a retired Navy SEAL, got me burner phones, gear, even a second identity. He thought I was crazy. Just file for fraud, he said. Come back from the dead legally and let the law handle it. But the law was never going to give me what I needed. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. This was AF********ing war. I needed to see what kind of woman she really was. If there was even one drop of remorse in her. But there wasn't. I watched her giggle with Jason on the porch swing I built by hand. I saw her walk around the house in my old t-shirts like they were trophies. One night, she hosted a party and used my medals as decorations on the fireplace. She told her friends that Jason was stronger than Travis ever was. That one hurt. Not because she compared us, but because she believed it. She had no idea she was being watched. I set up drones. Small, silent, hovering high. Got footage of them in the bedroom. In the kitchen. One night, Jason said he wanted to leave her. That he didn't feel safe anymore. That he thought someone was watching them. She laughed and said, "Don't be stupid. Travis is dead." Even if he wasn't, he never had the balls. That was the last night Jason seemed calm. Because 2 days later, he was tied to my bed, drugged, bruised, terrified. I don't know what happened between them, but I knew one thing. She didn't just betray me. She broke him too. So I made my move. Not loudly. Not violently. Just one quiet night, I snuck into the garage, my code still worked. I took a few tools. My old dog tags. A set of photos from our wedding. And I left one single note on the fridge. Dead men don't leave footprints. See you soon. The next day, she posted on Facebook about being haunted. She called the cops. Said she heard noises. But they didn't find anything. Because I didn't want to be found. Not yet. Let her paranoia build. Let her feel what I felt, that creeping shadow of betrayal. Let her taste fear. She planned to evict me from my own life? She should have made sure the coffin was sealed. Jason didn't leave the house for 3 days after that night. I watched him pace the living room, muttering to himself, jumping at every sound, looking out windows, locking doors twice. Brittany, on the other hand, walked around like a queen, glass of wine in hand, acting like she had everything under control. But I could tell the cracks were showing. She tried to seduce him again, but Jason pulled away, said he wasn't in the mood. That's when she snapped, threw the wine glass at the wall and screamed, "You think he's back? That's impossible. I planned this." She said it. I planned this. And now I had it all on audio. I'd planted a tiny mic in the garage door frame when I snuck in. It ran straight to a receiver in my car. Crystal clear audio of Brittany admitting what I needed, that my death wasn't just fate. It was engineered. She didn't kill me herself. No, she wasn't that bold. But she had told someone where I was, what route our convoy was taking, and when. The voice messages I recovered, thanks to Mason, were chilling. He said they're targeting that road anyway, right? So it's not really my fault if something happens. I just need that house, that pension, and you, babe. We can build a new life. He's just a chapter one need to close. She said that. About me. A chapter to close. The woman I married. The one who cried at our wedding. The one who wore my dog tags under her shirt the first year I was deployed. She turned me into a life insurance policy. My chest burned with rage, but I didn't act on it. Not yet. I needed the full picture. The full betrayal. Because this wasn't just revenge anymore. This was justice. On the 4th night, I watched Jason leave the house. He didn't drive his car. He took Brittany's. Smart move. I wouldn't be able to track him through license plates. But I didn't need to. I followed on foot, stayed in the shadows. He walked to a diner, the one we used to eat at before I deployed. He sat at a booth and stared at his phone for a long time. Then he made a call. To the police. I couldn't hear what he said, but he was shaking the entire time. After the call, he left through the back and walked home fast, like he was being followed. That's when I knew he was going to crack. Jason wasn't built for this. He was a meathead with a conscience. He didn't want this nightmare anymore. He wanted out. And Brittany. Brittany doesn't do out. The next day, cops came to the house. I watched from my car as Brittany answered the door with a fake smile, her robe tied tight like she was some grieving widow still in mourning. Jason stood behind her, pale, arms crossed. He didn't say a word. The cops stayed for less than 15 minutes. When they left, Brittany turned around and slapped Jason across the face. I zoomed in on my camera. Her mouth red. You talk, you die. Then, that night, Jason disappeared. I don't know how. I don't know where. But the next morning, Brittany made a new post. Heartbroken again. Life keeps testing me. Praying for peace and justice. Attached was a photo of her with Jason, smiling in the sun, weeks ago, with the hashtag gone too soon. She made him vanish. Maybe he ran. Maybe she made sure he couldn't talk. Either way, he was gone. And now, it was just her. Her and me. So I changed tactics. I called her. Used a voice modulator. Deep. Robotic. Just said one sentence. Dead men don't stay buried forever. She dropped the phone. 10 minutes later, she was out in the yard, pacing, screaming into the wind. Tears, snot, the works. She looked unhinged. And I was just getting started. Brittany stopped sleeping in our bedroom. After that call, she started dragging a blanket to the living room, curling up on the couch with the lights on, clutching a baseball bat like it was a teddy bear. The house that once made her feel untouchable now felt haunted. Good. She wanted me gone? Now she could live with my ghost. I didn't rush the next phase. No, I wanted her to slowly drown in paranoia. Every day, I gave her just enough fear to keep her spiraling. First, I left a military patch on the porch, one from my uniform she thought had burned with me. The next day, I sent a single dog tag in the mail. No return address. Just the tag and a slip of paper that read, "You lied." I listened. Then I watched her unravel. She called the cops 3 times in 1 week. Told them she was being stalked. That someone was playing mind games with her. But the moment they asked who might want to hurt her, she clammed up. Because Brittany knew the only person with a real reason to ruin her life was already dead. She couldn't admit it. Because that would mean confessing to the world that the perfect grieving wife was a manipulative, cheating liar who used a man's funeral to cash out. So she suffered in silence. She changed the locks, bought cameras, slept with a knife under her pillow, even tried to get a priest to bless the house. I watched the whole thing through the drone feed, sipping my coffee, wondering if she was praying for forgiveness or just survival. But here's the thing about guilt. It doesn't leave quietly. One night, I triggered the old speaker system in the house, the one I installed years ago that she never knew had remote access. At 2:03 a.m., the sound of my voice filled the living room. "I built this home for us, Brittany, but you built a grave." She screamed so loud, the neighbors turned on their porch lights. Cops came again. And again, nothing was found. She looked insane trying to explain it. Perfect. Now it was time to bring the curtain down. I booked an appointment with a lawyer under my new identity, one that Mason helped forge. The goal wasn't just revenge anymore. It was exposure. I wanted the truth to hit her like a freight train, in public, with witnesses, no way to spin her way out of it. But first, I needed a final piece of leverage. The kind that would shatter the last bit of control she had. That's when Mason handed me a flash drive. "You're not gonna like what's on it," he said. I plugged it into my laptop and watched. It was Jason, weeks before he disappeared, in our bedroom, shirt off, bruised. He was filming himself, whispering like he didn't want her to hear. If anything happens to me, it was Brittany. She planned it. She threatened me, said I was a liability. I wanted out, but she said I'd never leave alive. He turned the camera toward the door. "If you're watching this, I hope she rots." That was it. One shaky confession from a man who'd been broken by the same woman who broke me. That night, I printed stills from the video, added a copy of his statement, and slid them into envelopes addressed to the local police, a news station, and, just for poetic justice, her boss at the real estate agency. Then I left one more for her. I stood outside the house at 3 a.m. The same house she stole from me. The porch light flickered like it knew something wicked was standing in the yard. I slid the envelope under her front door. Inside was Jason's final message and my note. "I'm not a ghost, Brittany. I'm the storm you summoned." I walked away before sunrise. She'd wake up thinking she was safe, that her nightmare had ended. But the worst was only just beginning. Brittany always craved attention. That was her poison, the need to be adored, envied, praised. Every social post was curated to make her look like the flawless, resilient widow. #strong wife. #marine angel. #survivor. But on a Thursday morning, her whole fantasy shattered. First, the police showed up at her doorstep. Not just one officer, a detective. A woman named Sanchez, hard-eyed and quiet. I watched from a car 2 houses down, earpiece in, audio live from the mic I'd planted under the porch rail. "Miss Collins," Detective Sanchez began, "we received some disturbing material regarding you and a man named Jason Carter. Do you know where Mr. Carter is?" Brittany froze. Her voice trembled just enough to sound human. "Jason? He left. I haven't seen him in weeks." "Odd," the detective replied, flipping open a folder. "Because we have a video from him, dated just before he went missing. He said if anything happened, we should look at you." That's when Brittany snapped. "You can't be serious," she shouted. "That pathetic coward. He ran off after trying to blackmail me." The moment she said those words, I smiled. Because now they had probable cause. Sanchez stayed calm, but I could hear the tone shift. "So you admit there was conflict, that he made threats, that he disappeared under suspicious circumstances shortly after that?" "I didn't say that." Brittany's voice cracked. "This is harassment." She tried to slam the door, but Sanchez stepped forward. "We'll be in touch. Don't leave town." And just like that, the fortress began to crumble. But I wasn't done. That same morning, her boss, Charles Whitman, a stiff old man with no tolerance for scandal, received a package. Inside, the same evidence and a typed letter. "Your employee isn't the victim she claims to be. Ask her about the insurance fraud. Ask her where Jason Carter is." By noon, she was called into the office. By 2 p.m., she was fired. And by 3 p.m., oh, that was the best part, the local news was knocking. I watched her on the front lawn, trying to cover her face with a hoodie as the reporters shouted questions. "Brittany, is it true your late husband was never actually dead? Did you stage a funeral for insurance money? What happened to Jason Carter? Did he know too much?" She tried to speed walk back inside, muttering, no comment, but tripped on the steps and nearly face-planted into the door. A neighbor recorded the whole thing. By that evening, it was viral on TikTok. 3.6 million views. The comments section was brutal. "She faked a funeral and cashed in. Disgusting. Plot twist. Husband's watching this right now, sipping whiskey and smiling. This ain't a movie, girl. Karma came early. That night, I returned to the motel. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. This wasn't about humiliation. It was about making her feel everything I felt. The betrayal, the shock, the rage, the isolation. Let her lose everything while still breathing, just like I had. I stared at her Instagram for a while. The comments were turning. People were catching on. Old friends stopped liking her posts. The fake sympathy dried up. She made one last post. A black square. Caption. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who come back to ruin you. She still didn't get it. I didn't come back to ruin her. She summoned me with every lie. And now, it was time for her to see me. To look me in the eyes and realize the nightmare she tried to bury came back in the flesh. Because the next time we met, there would be no hiding. It was storming the night I knocked. Rain pounding the roof like war drums, wind howling through the trees like ghosts, poetic, really. I stood there on the porch, soaked to the bone, put up, backpack slung over one shoulder. Inside that pack, a stack of legal documents, my military ID, and our wedding photo, framed in broken glass. I knocked once. Firm. She answered on the third knock. Hair a mess. Eyes puffy. Hoodie on backward. A cigarette dangling from her fingers, hand trembling. She wasn't ready for cameras this time. No filters. No mascara. Just the real Brittany, stripped down and scared. The moment her eyes met mine, the cigarette dropped to the floor. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. She didn't even speak. She just staggered back like she'd seen Satan himself. I stepped in. You're not gonna invite me in? I said calmly, pushing the door shut behind me. Why you're not real, she stammered. You died. You died. I took off my hood. Clearly not. Guess you were hoping I stayed buried. She backed into the wall, clutching her chest. This isn't possible. The funeral, the casket. I saw it. They showed me your tags. I tossed the real tags onto the floor. Then whose name is on those? She didn't move. I took a step forward. You plan to evict me. Collect the benefits. Turn the house into a cute little Pinterest palace with Jason. But things didn't go according to plan, huh? Her face twisted into panic and denial. I was grieving. I didn't know what else to do. I was lost. I laughed. Cold and sharp. Is that why you were sleeping with him 2 weeks after I died? Or why you used my medals as decoration while you posted thirst traps on TikTok? Her voice cracked. You were gone. I didn't think you were coming back. Exactly. You didn't want me to come back. Silence. The thunder outside cracked so loud it shook the windows. She slowly slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, knees to chest. For a moment, she looked like someone who'd lost everything. Then her tone shifted. You could have come back and talked to me. We could have handled this differently. That was the switch. Classic Brittany. Turn herself into the victim when cornered. Handled this differently? I snapped. You called yourself a widow. Cashed in my death like a winning lottery ticket. You called Jason an upgrade. You planned to erase me. She covered her ears. Stop. Just stop. I leaned down, pulled the wedding photo from my bag, and dropped it in her lap. You dropped this off your social media 6 months ago. Figured you'd want it back. The glass was shattered. Fitting. She stared at it for a long time. Then whispered, What do you want, Travis? That was the first honest question she'd asked in years. I sat down across from her. Calm. Steady. Like I'd rehearsed this in my head 1,000 times. Because I had. I want my name cleared. I want the insurance fraud exposed. I want you to answer for Jason. And I want you out of my damn house. She scoffed. You can't prove anything. I pulled out a flash drive and dropped it next to her. Jason's confession. The photos. The recordings. Her face drained of color. You mailed this to the cops? She whispered. No. I'm handing it to them personally tomorrow. I wanted to see your face first. Then I stood. Walked to the door. Paused. You could have had a husband who came home from war just wanting peace. Instead, you created a ghost. And now that ghost is going to destroy your little empire. As I stepped out into the storm, she screamed something behind me. I didn't catch all of it. But I think it was my name. Didn't matter. By the next morning, everyone would know exactly who I was. The courthouse was colder than I remembered. Fluorescent lights. Gray floors. People whispering in the halls like something holy or horrible was about to happen. Maybe both. I sat near the front, in a pressed black suit that Mason helped me put together. Hair trimmed. Beard shaved. ID papers tucked in a neat folder beside me. I looked alive. Present. Real. Brittany walked in 20 minutes late, sunglasses on, fake tears ready. Dressed like a grieving widow on a movie set. Black dress. Black heels. Black soul. She didn't notice me at first. Not until she saw the prosecutor point at me. Her mouth opened. She blinked 3 times. Then froze. Her lawyer whispered something. She didn't respond. She just stared at me like she was seeing the ghost again, except this time, the ghost had legal representation and receipts. The judge entered. Gavel struck. Case began. State versus Brittany Collins. Insurance fraud, obstruction, falsifying death benefits, financial misrepresentation, and suspicious involvement in the disappearance of Jason Carter. The room shifted like air got sucked out. The prosecutor wasted no time. First, they rolled the Jason video. His swollen face, trembling voice, whispering into the camera. If something happens to me, it was Brittany. Brittany's face turned pale. Her lawyer objected, not admissible, not verified, not proven he's even gone. But it didn't matter. The video shook the courtroom like an earthquake. Then came the financial records, the rapid transfer of military benefits, the fake death certificate, the GoFundMe campaign titled, Help Brittany Heal. Over $120,000 raised. All spent. Clothes. Trips. Wine clubs. And, of course, Jason's gym equipment. Then the icing on the cake, the surveillance footage. Audio from the house. My house. Her voice, crystal clear. Once he's officially declared dead, it's all mine. Jason and I will be set. And then, silence in the room. Dead, choking silence. The judge turned to Brittany. Do you have anything to say regarding this material? Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. She stood up slowly, removed her sunglasses, and said, in that sugary voice she used when trying to charm waiters or manipulate my parents. I was grieving. I wasn't in my right mind. I made poor decisions, but none of it was malicious. Malicious? She tried to erase me. She slept with my replacement before I was even cold, and planned to make sure I never came back to claim anything. Malicious was the only word that fit. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly, walked to the center of the room, looked right at her. I'm not a vengeful man, I began. I serve this country believing in honor, loyalty, truth. And I came home expecting those same things from the person who promised them to me. She looked away. I didn't come here to ruin her life. She did that herself. I came here to reclaim mine. The room was still. Even the judge leaned forward slightly. I ended it with one sentence. I may have come back from the war with scars, but she gave me the deepest one. The judge took 30 minutes before returning. In the end, the fraud charges stuck. She was sentenced to 3 years probation, 6 months house arrest, and restitution for the funds. Jason's case was reopened. She wasn't charged yet, but the investigation would continue. She didn't go to prison that day, but she left court in handcuffs. And as she walked past me, head down, I whispered just loud enough. You should have made sure the coffin was sealed. She didn't answer, just cried. Not for me, not for Jason, for herself. Her mask was gone, and without it, she wasn't some elegant widow or Instagram queen. She was just a liar who finally got caught. And for the first time, I felt peace. 3 months after the courtroom silence, the house was mine again. Not legally, not at first, but spiritually, emotionally, morally, it belonged to me the moment I stepped across the threshold and she wasn't there. No fake candles. No Jason's gym bag. No staged photos for the gram. Just silence. Real silence. Not the kind that feels like a scream. The kind that breathes. I stood in the center of the living room. The place where I caught them once. The same spot where Brittany once laughed with Jason while my memory rotted in an urn that never even held my ashes. And then, I laughed. Because it was over. Not the pain. That stays with you in pieces. But the power she had over my life, that was gone. I got my name restored. The military issued a full correction. Insurance companies pulled back the funds. Her GoFundMe page was flagged for fraud and shut down. People started turning on her online. Even the local papers called her the widow who lied. She tried to hide behind a private profile. But screenshots live forever. As for Jason, his trail was cold. The police hadn't found him, and maybe they never would. If he was smart, he ran far. If he was stupid, well, Brittany's threats weren't made of smoke. And she'd proven she was capable of crossing lines most people wouldn't even see. But none of that mattered anymore. I wasn't hunting ghosts. I wasn't haunted by them either. I fixed up the house myself, rebuilt the porch swing, tore down the bedroom ceiling fan where they once hung that dumb red scarf, burned it in the fireplace. One night, I took a bottle of whiskey and just watched it burn until it was nothing but threads and ash. Then I went outside, stood barefoot in the yard, felt the cold dirt under my feet, looked up at the stars, and for the first time since deployment, I didn't feel like a shadow. I got therapy, real therapy. Not that I'm fine macho crap. I started talking about things I buried way before Brittany, about fear, guilt, brotherhood, loneliness. I finally processed the war that nearly killed me and the woman who tried to finish the job when it didn't. And I met someone. Not the way Brittany did, not as a replacement or a trophy. No lies. No games. Just real conversation. It started small at the farmer's market, of all places. She asked about my dog tags. I told her the short version. She didn't pity me. She respected me. Her name's Emily. She's a nurse. The kind who can read a man's pain without him needing to say a word, but still makes him want to speak anyway. We're taking it slow, because now I know that healing isn't a race. It's a war of its own, and one worth fighting right. Sometimes I still get messages from people who followed the story online. Damn, bro, you should have burned the house down with her in it. Or, you're too soft, I would have made her suffer for life. But they don't get it. I didn't do this to destroy her. I did it to rebuild me. If you're reading this, and you've been betrayed, erased, humiliated, I want you to understand something. You don't win by becoming the monster they think you are. You win by surviving the fire and walking out with your soul intact. So here's my advice. Don't get even. Get free. Let them live in the ruins they built for you. And then build something better from scratch, just for you. This is where my story ends, and my life begins.